Hello and welcome to Cinemondo with Kathy and Melanie from Pardaisy Reviews. Yay!
Yay!
They have a link. I have a link to her channel in the notes, and you'll see all this. I'll make sure and add links because you got to see this channel. It's so good. I'm learning everything about indie films from Melanie. So here we are. So this was Melanie's idea to do a review of, and you can say the whole title because I'll just use initials.
Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, which means the brave-hearted will win the bride. And otherwise known as ddlj.
ddlj is what I call it.
Yeah.
That's how it's going to go for me. So I was excited to see this because I'm really enjoying looking back at a lot of Shah Rukh Khan movies. I haven't done a lot of, reviews or looks at his films. I mean, I've seen some of his more recent ones, but it's nice to go back and see how he became a star. And I can see why.
And we did, before Patan came out on my channel, we talked about Om Shanti Oshana and KKKG. So we did two other iconic Shah Rukh Khan performances. But I felt like Kathy has reached this moment in her Indian
in my education.
Like you need to see. There's so many films that reference this film, that make jokes on scenes from this film, that quote dialogues from this film, that it's just one of those touchstones that you just kind of, I mean, it's an awesome film. I'm not taking anything away from it, but it's just one of those juggernauts, like you have to see it. Like it would be like somebody saying, yeah, I'm a huge fan of, Hollywood, but I've never seen The Godfather. Like, come on,
I know people that need to watch The Godfather. Definitely need to see that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those films that it's just such a part of the film conversation. And it's so iconic that you kind of have to know why did Shah Rukh kind of get pigeonholed into doing romantic roles, because it was a DDLJ.
So good at them. And he plays a goofball very well. I mean, he just has that face, that sort of affect where he can just be kind of a goof. And so it kind of works in movies like this because he's kind of that.
His face in this movie just goes through all sorts of like.
I know. I'm like, this guy's a sex symbol, right? Because I'm not getting it right away. So this movie, so let me know if this is still true. It came out in 1995 and it's continued its first run in theaters ever since. Has it ever left the theater?
So it's like in the Guinness Book of World Records. It played in the Maratha Mandir Theater, and it's still, as far as I know, still playing there today. One showing a day. Sorry. And I think there was, once it won the Guinness World Record, I think there was like a brief time that they tried to not show it, and then there was an uproar and they brought it back. So
everybody wants the opportunity to see it whenever they want.
After the 25th anniversary of the film. So, I mean, this came out in 1995. It's nearing its 30th anniversary almost. Iconic. So the crazy thing is the director of this film is Aditya Chopra. His father, Yash Chopra, a very famous film director, produced this film, but let his 20-year-old son do the script that he'd been working on and make this film. Okay, here's a crazy fact for you. The original conception that Aditya Chopra had was that it should be an Indian girl and an American guy.
Oh, okay.
And do you know who he wanted to play the guy?
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise.
Of course. Are there any other American actors? I can't think of any.
It just boggles the mind.
I would love to see Nick Cage do it, but they probably won't for Tom Cruise. It'd be like the Indian Valley Girl.
Now, Shah Rukh and Kajol, this was not a new, it was not a new pairing for them. They had done two other successful films together, Bazigar and Kran Arjun. So they were, but this is the iconic one. This is the one.
This is one, I mean, when I was starting to watch Indian films, this is the one I kept hearing about. Like, this was breaking through, as like, got to see this film. And when you finally suggest, I'm like, now's the time, because I know Melanie can fill me in on a lot of it. I can watch it and enjoy it. Know I'll get all the background. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to do it. I knew I'd get more information about this great film.
I can't even count how many times that I've seen it. I've probably seen it like 10 times. And it's one of those where I kind of hesitate to recommend it as a very first Indian film to someone.
Yeah.
I love it so much. And if somebody hated it, like it would be
like,
very
I hate you now.
Like
at the same time, it isn't I can see why you'd want to recommend it because it's beautifully produced and it's a rom-com. No one has to worry about getting terrorized, but at the same time it's also got a bridge that most of it takes place in Europe. So you're getting this interesting merging of Europe and beautiful landscapes and European culture with the Indian culture overlay. So that makes it almost like kind of a nice gateway in a weird way. Because I was watching it going, this looks unlike anything I've seen. And I read, because most of it's shot in Europe. So it just feels very different. And I like that they're all kind of these, fish out of water in a way because they're all on their big trip and they're all being tourists. And that was a great idea because you're getting that beauty and that comfort zone of like, I can watch this because, I don't have to understand the culture. But I love that they bring you the culture. Is great.
I know. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, poor Kajol dancing in the snow and falling down in the snow. I'm sure she had pantyhose or tights on, but even so, I'm like, oh my God.
I know. That was a great scene. I mean, that was like, I kind of reminds Sound of Music, with the running through the hills and with a little bit of more humor.
Yeah.
But it had that epicness, like just the beautiful, just mountains and the landscapes. My God, it was just gorgeous. And just seeing those music sequences were amazing because they're just so well staged. And they're such a great pair.
If you ever go to Switzerland, literally you can take the ddlj tour.
Oh, that's so good. Definitely gonna do that.
People literally make pilgrimages and they go to Switzerland so they can visit some of these locations, right?
So good. Oh my God. I love that. I love doing movie tours. I'm a big dork like that. I love seeing movie locations. I never get sick of it. I mean, we have a million here in Hollywood, but I still get a thrill doing it. Like when I was able to walk around the lot and just see where things are filmed, very iconic, locations that are still there that people still repurpose and shoot in. Let alone, like, I still like to do the Game of Thrones tour. I would just do that. It's like, just seems fun. This is now on my list. Put it right up there with the Game of Thrones.
If I'm ever in Switzerland.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have I been to Switzerland? I think I briefly went through it on a train, but it was on the way to somewhere else. I don't remember.
But, I mean, this is, it was iconic for so many reasons, but part of the reasons is what you were saying about fish out of water. You have these two characters who did not grow up in India. They grew up, he set them in the diaspora. They live in London. And yet, it's written by a guy who grew up in India, but was very cosmopolitan, wealthy family. Like obviously he'd visited London. Right. So, but it was one of the first films that all of the people who had immigrated from India or were children of immigrants could really respond to. This, it not only made business in India, but it was a huge film internationally when it came out because all these people felt like this speaks to me, because this is about my experience. And yet it's like both modern and super traditional because while you have, like you say, this modern setting, these kids getting to go through Europe, whatever, they've grown up in London, but then the core Indian culture values, like literally Aditya Chopra wrote it that Shah Rukh's character Raj is not going to elope until he gets the parents' permission, until Amrish Puri, one of the scariest actors known to man.
Oh my God, he was terrifying. Oh,
he's like, until he puts her hand in mine, I'm like,
and even she was like, seriously? Like, let's just go. Like she was willing to go.
And the like, mom is like, here's my jewelry, just go.
Everybody wanted them to go, except he's like, nope, I'm going to convince the dad. And she's just like, no, you're not. You're not going to convince my dad. I love that. And she was already promised to a childhood, I don't know, what would you call it? Childhood, not really a friend. She'd never really met him, right?
It was a family friend, right?
Yeah,
like
so
the dad, they weren't cousins. I mean, they were just friends, and that was the line in the letter. Let's take, go from friendship to kinship. We talked about having our kids marry. Let's do it, right?
So here she is in a kind of modern situation with her own thoughts and dreams, and then they're like, "Don't forget, you're going to have to marry this guy you haven't met," and she's like, I'm gonna go to Europe.
Yeah.
Like,
Can I
and
just
I like
have
how she had
1
to ask
month for
his
my
permission.
life?
Oh. And she had to ask her permission. I
Well,
love that scene too.
I mean, I
Oh.
kind of get the feeling maybe she was just a high school graduate. Like, I don't know if she was supposed to have gone to college, you know?
Yeah, it was hard, kind of hard. I was a little unclear on their ages.
Right.
Because sometimes I feel like you get a little bit younger because of the dynamics, just the culture and everything else. Everybody acts a lot younger than they are. Like they always act like they're in high school when they're around people of the opposite sex, and they're all like,
Right.
you know. And so I wasn't quite sure because they look like people in their 30s,
Yeah.
but they're clearly supposed to be like
right.
people.
I mean, Shah Rukh is supposed. I mean, he was 30 when he made this film, but he's probably playing somebody that's at most like 24 or 25, right?
He acted like someone who was 14.
Right. And Anupam Kher, who plays his dad, I think in real life was only a few years older than him, right? But yet he's playing his dad because he's the balding.
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
always the dad. He's always the dad.
I think I told you I met him at a shoot.
I don't remember. I didn't remember that.
I didn't appreciate the legend I was meeting at the time. I didn't appreciate it because I was just going to the shoot. It was a show called New Amsterdam.
Oh yeah, his television show, the Doctor Hospital one.
Yes. So I went to it and he was so amazing, so classy, super friendly, hung out on the set while we were doing the shoot. Usually actors kind of disappear and I don't want to be part of it. Like he was hanging out, talking to everybody, very elegant, very mannered, beautiful person. Like I was like, who is this guy? And then as you look at it, they do a lot of pitching for shows when they'll actually come up with Instagram followers, right? So they'll be like, this actor has this many, this actor has this many. So it was like, the main actor, I can't remember his name now, Ryan.
Right.
He has like 1.5 million. Oh, well, that's great. And then the woman has, and then they get to him and he's like 500 million followers. They're like, but we don't know who he is. Like it kind of blew everyone's mind how to market it because he was clearly the biggest star, but no one in America had heard of him. So it's very interesting to try and get him to the art. We ended up with just a cute young guy, of course, but he dominated that show. Like he was in there and he had, until kind of the second or third season, they gave him less and less to do. I guess he was going home a lot because he had some problems there, and then he quit because of his wife, I think. But the show sadly missed him and he left. So that was a long story about
this great actor. Hearing about
so when I see him, I'm like, oh my God, I got to meet him.
Right. Well, do you remember the film Big Sick? And I'm blanking on the actor.
The guy from Silicon
Valley. That's on from Marvel now, but yeah. Yes. So like it was his dream casting to have Anupam Kher as his dad, and he's just like, there's no way. He's such a big star. There's no way.
Yeah.
And then he sent him the script, and yeah, he's also done. What was that one with Jennifer Lawrence? And it had he played a psychologist, Silver Linings Playbook.
Right.
So he played so he has done some Hollywood things, but it was like for Big Sick, he was just like it's like his parents just lost their minds that their son was going to have a movie with Anupam Kher playing his dad. Like
oh, that's really funny. I love that. That's so good.
So even in the opening credits. So do you remember when we recently watched Kiran Kher play the mother of Aishwarya Rai in Devdas?
Yes.
Okay, so Kiran
Which
Kher,
I love.
That is Anupam Kher's wife.
Oh, right.
And she is the one that came up with the title for ddlj because it's from a song from another 70s movie called Chor Machaye Shore, and it was Le Jayenge, Le Jayenge. So I think they were singing it in one of those wedding celebration parties. They were singing it,
That's right. That's right.
So that's where the title comes from. But I thought that was funny that they gave her prominent in the opening credit titles. Title by.
You get a credit. Well, she's doing the titles. Who's in charge of the credits? I guess she will be. She can give herself credit.
Even the costuming is so iconic. So like the green sari that Kajol wears and that one rooftop dance sequence, that was a very unusual wedding color. Then of course it became
I'm sure everybody wears green now.
Yeah. And then that Harley Davidson jacket. Like I think they talk about it in that Romantics documentary. Like I think so. Karan Johar, the famous director, we've seen, KKKG. He is the friend with glasses in this movie. but also he was like an assistant director, and he helped some with the costuming too.
That's
so
cool.
I think it was his idea. Like, Uday was in California, Aditya Chopra's brother, like, get this, go to this shop in LA and get this jacket.
That's so good.
So Shah Rukh, like when the 25th anniversary happened a few years ago, they had Kajol and Shah Rukh got together, and Shah Rukh still has the backpack. He still has the jacket. Like, he is kept.
Wow.
And I mean, and the documentary, The Romantics, really made me realize the money that came from this movie essentially made the studio, Raj studio, like it had been, you know, it carried them through troubled times because they just had all of this money from this one movie,
right.
You know, which led them to be able to do so many other things.
That's right.
So, and we saw the movie Om Shanti Om. Farah Khan did some of the choreography in this film, including the number when they're in Paris, and Kajol taunts Shah Rukh to play the piano.
Yes,
that's number Rakaja Dilwale. She did not know she was going to be dropped at the end of that song. That was a surprise. So Aditya told Shah Rukh to do that. It's another one of those things. Not cool now. You know, like, I think she could have given a stunned reaction without having to actually be surprised.
Yeah, I think you could count on your actor to do that. And what, did he feel bad doing that? I mean, I would feel kind of bad doing that.
I don't know. He kind of gives a vibe of being a little bit of a prankster. So
yeah, that's true. That did come off in the film too.
But like, yeah, if you know the site Film Companion, if you've ever seen anything on there, it's a big film review site. Aditya Chopra, she wrote an entire book just about the making of this movie. I don't have it with me here. I have it in my Illinois house, but it's, you know, it's all this making of. It's such an iconic, like, she wrote an entire book just on this one movie and how it was made.
And there's probably a big audience for that because you're invested in knowing more about this film. I mean, when film's really big, you want to know.
And behind the scenes, and how did it all come together? So I don't know, you know, I mean, that's also the I mean, we've had this with many other directors that are talents, where your first creative venture is so amazing that then what do you do as follow-up? Right?
Yeah.
You know, the pressure. So I mean, Aditya Chopra certainly has had successful films since then, but I don't know. And he, you know, I mean, he's producer and things like Patan and whatever, but I don't know. Nothing can ever quite match the iconicness of ddlj, right? Like, it's just, you know,
I wonder too, like in this day and age with streaming and, you know, movies on demand, I feel like part of the magic of being an iconic film is you had to go to the theater to see it, and you have to go to the theater over and over, and you had to see it on the big screen every time. Can we even make those movies anymore? Like, I kind of worry that movies and streaming almost making things more disposable.
But I do think the rise of VCR and whatever in India, I mean, I think this was a film that everyone had and grew up watching all the time. I mean,
they got to have it on repeat on their TV.
Right. Well, I mean, I remember one actress being interviewed, and she says, well, I watch it every day. Like, you know, like, literally that's her favorite movie, and she watches it every day.
You get to own it. You get to have it in your hand too.
But it definitely, I think it was, you know, I mean, I think it was just one of those that for all of these people who have grown up with it, it just permeated their childhood. I don't know, in the same way like Star Wars was iconic. Like,
I was gonna say, what are our iconic films that we think of, and that's one of the big ones because it still continues to intrigue. But you know, they had a million sequels. Like, this is a one-off, and it still exists, and it's still relevant. Which is, how many movies can do that? The Godfather, for one. I'll just say that.
Right. Well, I mean, there was actually a sort of a sequel made called Dilwale, where they sort of, you know, it wasn't exactly that's supposed to be the same characters, but it was rematching. I mean, Kajol and Shah Rukh have been together in films since then. I'm not saying you know, they weren't, you know, great, but
not those.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. And Honors Paris, like, oh my God, he is just so intimidating as the dad.
Oh, intimidating.
like all of those scenes of Shah Rukh trying to butter him up by doing the pigeon feeding at dawn, like.
And he was so dorky about it. He's like trying to say, do this weird. It was like, you're not, and I like it. This was like his little ritual. He liked to be alone. Here comes this guy. He's kind of ruining it for him. And he's like, this is not working for me. It's not working.
I mean, he's so intimidating. And it's like, how would you feel like if you realized you like, okay, I'm going to win over this family. And then you come face to face and it's the guy that you scammed to keep his store open so you could buy beer. Like that had seen you some of your worst, right? Like
so bad. And he was so obnoxious. I mean,
the whole first half of the film. Like it's not even that he drops her in that song. There's one moment where he kind of on her open back, because she has a halter dress, he goes like this all the way down to her butt. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, like that would not fly so much today, right? Like there's so many things like that. Yeah, he was just like such a brat for the first half. Like when they first meet and they're on the train and he is just like, you know, like trying to get under her book. I mean, literally, like you said, he's 14. Like he's so.
He was that way with his friends too. He was not cool with them. He's late to everything.
The head off.
The scene that really struck me too is the scene where he's trying to make nice with her, so he brings her a flower and she's buying it, and all her friends are there seeing it, and he's just like, oh yeah, and then it ends up there's water in the flower. He sprays her in the face and runs away like a big idiot, like and I'm like, that would have been it for me. You're done. You know, she was so sad about it. Like she wasn't even mad. She was just like, what? It was like the sad. It's like I was like, I can't believe you didn't read that room, dude. Seriously, like you thought that was the time to play the joke right now.
Watching it so many times, you can see the certain scenes where he really shifts and where he grows up.
Yeah.
And one of them. I mean, he starts to take responsibility, like we're in the barn and he's trying to get her to eat.
Let's talk about that scene.
Yeah, you know, and he's trying to get her to eat. Yeah. He won't let her just be in the barn. He could be in their hotel room, like, fine, you hate me that much, you know, but no, he won't let her be unsafe and alone.
Yeah.
So you can just see it's starting to turn, and then the real, inflection point is when he pranks her and she reacts by saying, oh yeah, we slept together last night, and that she just completely loses it. And then he's like, I'm still an Indian. There's no way I would ever do that to you.
She looked so mortified. It was breaking my heart too. Like, oh my God, you're letting her believe that. Like, that's not even funny. Like,
no, I mean, people have committed suicide over that, like, come on. And it was such an extreme prank, but that was the moment where you can just see. And then she's so relieved that she hugs him.
Yeah.
And then you sort of see both of them sort of have this moment of awareness, like,
you're like, oh, maybe this is more than we thought.
Like, oh, let me hold
this isn't so bad.
Let me put my face in your hair. Like, it's just like this inflection point of everything changes really from that moment. When they say goodbye in the train station, the line that Shah Rukh says was not in the original script. That was his idea to say, no, I won't come to the wedding.
That was good.
I mean, it was really good because it was just not like, it's not what you're and you sort of see both of them kind of realize, like,
the light bulb.
Yeah. Oh, he's gone from my life now. Like,
and he's like, I can't come to your wedding because I care too much. Like, she saw so much in that moment of like, if he just said, yeah, sure, I'll come, it'd be like, oh, he's okay with this wedding. He's like, he's gonna be fine. So I guess all the stuff I have in my head about him isn't true.
Right.
But when you did that, she kind of went, oh shit, he does feel the same way I do. Oh no. I want to go back to the barn scene real quick. When that happened, I was just terrified.
Oh, sorry.
I'm like, having lived on a horse.
The fire in the barn. Oh my God.
I was like, you're lighting a fire inside a barn next to a bunch of hay built out of old wood. And I'm like,
how many times have I said the same thing when I'm watching that scene? Like, I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God.
I was like, she's such a city girl that she didn't know, oh, I'm lighting a fire in the barn. What could go wrong?
Oh my God.
I'm so glad he went out there. I went, whoa. She was like, it's so cold. I'm like, go in the room.
Inside. Yeah.
Seriously.
Go inside.
was so yeah, I just want to say that was the most terrifying moment for me. Besides the father. The
It is
father was
pretty.
about barn level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly when that Indiana Jones movie came out, but it was probably around the same time.
Yeah, I think it was.
I mean, Amrish is like icon. He's done several extreme villain roles in Hindi cinema. You can only imagine. I mean, yeah, but
So
he is just he's so scary.
And I thought it was interesting too because I'm used to the thing where the woman is promised to a guy and he's a troll. And she's like, and then she has the cute guy that she's actually in love with. So she's like, I got to marry this troll. What I thought was interesting in this is they had the friend, when they show the friend that she's been promised to, shows up, he's totally hot, totally good looking. You're like, this is a good match. Yeah. Then you find out his character is terrible. He's like big hunter. He's like kind of a just super like arrogant, sort of entitled rich guy. And he's always just like roller. You just see him being completely abusive and toxic for her, like just not a good idea. Right. So even though he wasn't like, oh well, this isn't a total disaster, at least he's not that. Right. It's like when you find out how different he is, because at the point it was like, well, at least he's mature. And then when you're seeing, Raj, SRK's character, he's such a little baby. And then when all of a sudden he starts kind of maturing and waking up, and when he says he will also do the fast with her when they have to do that fast, and it was like, oh my god, he's being so sweet now. And then we started becoming a little bit more insistent on winning over the dad, and I know
the way you see
being
the
honorable. It's like,
right, you see the way that he tries to win over every single member of the
one
family.
by one they fell. Except for the dad.
And then you see at the end, it's not just the dad that's looking at him like, you lied to me, you betrayed me. Yeah. Every single person down that line is like the aunties. Like, you were carrying the trays and you were lying to me this whole time. Like,
you were just going around being endearing, and you were doing this behind the scenes.
Right. I mean, just the daggers. I was just noticing on this, like I said, upteenth watch, all the little, we didn't even know the names, but all the aunties just like, oh.
Like, I know, they're like, I can't believe I fell for that. So funny.
But yeah, I mean, really I mean, you have someone who is an absolute rogue.
Yep.
And we see him redeemed. We see him actually work for it. Okay. Like,
yes.
We see somebody actually go the distance, work for it, and like you say, be honorable to the last bit.
Yeah.
So the whole fight sequence was not supposed to be. I don't even know if there was one in the original script, but Shah Rukh Khan asked for there to be an action sequence.
I want to fight scene.
He always wanted to be an action star, and now with Patan, he truly is. But he always wanted to be one, so he was the one, and it's so iconic. Like that scene where he comes up with the gun, and just everybody flies. Like,
God, and it felt like, oh my god, is this the turn in this movie? Because I always expect now, like the big drama scene. I'm like, please don't shoot anybody. This movie does not need anyone getting shot, even the big jerk like the fiance. It's like no, but yeah, that was that, and then everyone's face. I love too. Everyone's beat up. They're all bloody. He has a bloody nose. He looks awful. And the big romantic scene at the end. He has to look like that.
Yeah.
He's on the train. And then the dad's like, no one's going to love her more than him. And it's like, he looks like garbage. Could you have cleaned him up for this scene? Like, my God.
Could the dad have handed him a handkerchief? Here, wipe your face.
Clean yourself up a little bit. Before I say you can have her, please wipe your nose. I'm just...
But just know that scene of him lifting her onto the train, that's one of the ones that you'll just see as a motif you'll see in other films. Yes. Played for comedy, played for straight, just so many different references to that, right? Like, so many nods to this. And it's so iconic. Like, I can't quote the Hindi line, but even Barack Obama, when he visited India, he gave the senorita, body, like, small things happen in big places line in his speech in India, because it's just so, like, he knew, one of his speechwriters at least knew, like,
they knew
this is somebody that will reach everybody in your audience. But I mean, I love this film so much, and like I said, I hesitate as a first film, even though, like you say, it's very accessible, but it's just, this is the film that I happened to sit down and watch on Netflix all those years ago. almost 10 years ago now, like, and this is the one that started it all for me. Like,
Right.
I then watched, same director, Aditya Chopra,
Interesting.
made a film called Rabni Bani Di Jodi. At the time, they were both on Netflix streaming, and I was able to just go from one to the next. And I'm like,
Okay.
who is this guy? This Shah Rukh Khan guy. Like,
give me more of this. And there was plenty.
And there was plenty.
There's plenty.
But that was just the light bulb moment that has started my whole journey of watching over 700 Indian films. This was the movie that started it all for me.
Wow,
and
that's cool.
Started my love for Indian cinema. And so, like I said, I hold it so close that I'm like, to someone who's never seen anything, I don't want them. And I understand there's things that are cringe, especially in the first half of the film. It's like we were just saying before we started filming, we were talking about, it's sort of like movies from my teenage world were the movies like Pretty in Pink and stuff like that. If you go back, there's some really awful stuff in them.
Yeah.
Really
some stuff doesn't age well.
So 16 Candles. Oh man.
Oh, that was super bad. Yeah. And it's funny too. I love so much about those, and I love the actors in a lot of these, but yeah, some of them you look and you go, I'm almost embarrassed I ever liked it. It's like, God.
Yeah. So there's certain things in here that I'm like, but still the story holds up. I mean, it's iconic for a reason, right?
It is.
I mean, yeah.
And it's the classic, like, will they or won't they? And that's part of, I think, the appeal is like, will they or won't they? They're almost like, almost hate each other, but don't hate each other because they, he's always pulling pranks and doing his thing. But it's one of those movies where it ends and I really want to know their story after that. Like, and I know that it would probably ruin it to do that. But when they jump on the train, I'm like, please follow them. I want to know how this works out. Because it just seems like it would be a very interesting
do they go back to London? What do they do? Does he grow up and like become, now is he a responsible person, or does he, whatever, does he fail in her eyes in the future? Does what happens, right?
Do they drift apart because now they're professionals, because they're both, they both have their dreams, they're going to go to university, blah blah. But it's like, what happens? Like, is it the marriage that, he's doing his business and she's either home taking care of the kids? Is the magic gone? But then they rediscover the flame. Like, that's sort of the movie I expect, but also don't really want to see that. Part of me wants to see it, part of me doesn't. But yeah, it definitely, when it's over, you want more. You want to just continue down the train with them.
Yeah. Well, and this is why they have done, multiple films together, and I think, they've been very good friends for a long time.
Yeah.
I also, part of the magic of this film was Karan Johar was so involved. He and Aditya Chopra were friends as young. This is before Karan Johar even thought of, I think, being a director himself. And so, they worked on the script together. I read Karan Johar's autobiography is called Unsuitable Boy. And so he talks about, being on the set. And I mean, it was pivotal for him and his career too, for, so many people. But you should just think about how young Aditya Chopra was. Of course, I mean, Nepo kid, he had the backing of his father's studio, his father producing the film.
But at least money well spent.
Yeah, but I mean, it just, to come up with such a great script at that young age. And I mean, it's not like it feels very still young and fresh in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah,
like it's very modern, but it has so many traditional things. It's like, as I'm watching it, I'm like, so many of the traditional songs. And I mean, people are still, I'm sure, doing all of those at wedding celebrations today, right? Oh my gosh, there's so many things to love. And we didn't even talk about the soundtrack. Like, this is one of the first ones that I remember downloading, and some of them are just have such simple lines that repeat and repeat and repeat that, like, even though I didn't know what I was saying, I can sing along.
Yes.
But it's just an epic soundtrack.
It's phonetically great. Some really fun dance sequences that are built into it, which are nice. I love that when it's like him performing, doing the dancing on purpose. It's not just like, hey, let's break out of the movie and then come back. I like that too. And we have a couple posters.
I like that moment when Amrish Puri, like, everything stops dead.
Yes.
Shah Rukh is like,
He's like,
and he just
okay.
like up in the corner with this government, and then all of a sudden Emma Freeze starts dancing and singing. Oh, what a moment!
So cute, so good. And we have like a poster, which is
oh yes,
this was the big like
yeah. You see his little hat, his little hat that he got in Switzerland or Germany or whatever, and then that epic mustard field from
that was such a great scene.
Reunite.
Oh, so good. And his face in this. Oh my god, it was so good.
Yeah.
And then we have the more comedy. This is the but you see the jacket you were talking about.
Yeah.
The Harley Davidson jacket. Yep. And the hat. They go well together.
Hat. Yep, the hat from Europe.
You can tell this guy is not a serious person. As they say in Succession. So, but yeah, these are, two different cells. One is the romance cell. This is definitely the comedy romance cell. Right. So I thought, that's, and they're a little more, rough looking because Photoshop wasn't quite there yet. So,
yeah,
looking a little more cut out, but yeah, those are two like fun scenes and the very accurate marketing, and that pretty much is the vibe of the movie. A little bit of hardcore romance, a little bit of comedy, and then some drama with a gun. So
yeah,
and everything you could possibly want in a film. I love that. But that was great. I'm so glad I finally get to watch it. I'm glad I watched it and got to talk to you about it because you give me all the information I want and all of you.
She ever wanted to know.
I love it. This is how I learn. You had to do it all on your own. See, I'm getting
I mean, like I said, if you want to learn more, like I said, the romantics documentary, I think practically had almost an entire episode discussing the making of this film and what an impact it had on Yash Raj Studios and their continued financial health.
Thank you for this one film that keeps putting money in the bank. Exactly. Everybody wants that film. Everybody wants the Star Wars.
But I mean, it's crazy to think in 2 more years, this will be the 30th anniversary. They really did it up big for the 25th anniversary. They had, like I said, events where Kajol and Shah got back together again and discussed the film and what it meant for them and everything. And so I hope they do more in a couple more years when it comes out again. But yeah, this is the movie for me that really
started
all, really kicked off my love, because I mean, there's just so much to love in this film, of the romantic comedy, of the music, the dance numbers, the colors, just everything about it made me fall in love. So the same way Shah fell in love with Kajol and Kajol fell in love with Shah in this film, I fell in love with Indian cinema because of ddlj.
I love that. That's a great way to end it. And maybe you will too. So if you haven't seen any Indian cinema, watch this and watch RRR. Those are two great entryways into it. Very different.
Very different.
But they are the two
romance versus romance. But yeah,
it's different kind of romance. Different kind of romance in that movie. Definitely. So thank you so much. And be sure and hit the subscribe button, the bell button, like, comment, subscribe. That's what we want. Make sure and visit Melanie's channel, Pardaisy Reviews.
Bye.
Bye.